Going to talk about a subject that should be of interest to everyone, but a subject that I don't think I've really ever spoken about, at least not to the extent that we're going to talk about it right now, and that is the dangerous social media challenges. Now, if you have children or if you have grandchildren, you need to listen up here, because there's a lot of bad stuff going on right now on social media, and kids are dying. Kids are dying because of some of this stuff. So let me just play a couple of things before I get to my guest here, get to my guest, excuse me. This is a mom who talks about what happened to her daughter. The daughter took what was called the Benadryl challenge on social media. Listen to this mom. Cut 47, please, Rob.
This is my daughter. She's going to be 13 on December 21st. And she almost didn't make it because of this Benadryl challenge. This is not a joke, people. I need people to listen to me. My daughter consumed over 15 Benadryl around midnight, November 30th, 2020. My daughter is still awake, hallucinating. It is now December 1st, 2020. For over 24 hours, she has been hallucinating. Her heart rate was over 180 when we took her to the hospital. It took them over 8 hours to get her heart rate down. My daughter is scared out of her mind. She has no idea who she is or where she's at. She fell off her bed and almost spit all the way through her tongue.
Yeah, this is something that's going on. It is not getting the amount of coverage that it should get. It certainly, all of us know about fentanyl that has come across the border. But I want to introduce you to Dr. Deborah Atkisson. She is a psychiatrist who has a specialty in this field. Dr. Deborah Atkisson, welcome to Nightside. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, Dan. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening to talk about this.
Well, I think it's important to talk about it. Now, you counsel with a lot of children. That's sort of the specialty in your practice, correct?
That is correct. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and I'm the regional medical director for Connections Wellness Group, where we treat a lot of children and adolescents.
And you teach at Texas Christian University, great university in Texas. How dangerous are the, we'll call them social media challenges. I know a lot of them are associated with TikTok, but we're going to go through some of them. But generally, these are not things that kids should be messing around with.
Oh, not at all. And as I was listening to the clip about the girl who had taken the TikTok Benadryl challenge, that is extremely scary. The mother, I'm glad she talked about this, because if you take too many Benadryl, you can run the risk of having a cardiac arrhythmia, which can lead to immediate cardiac death. When I heard that pulse of 180, I thought that girl is fortunate that she did not die.
Let me tell you, this is going on. There's a whole bunch of them that I don't know if my audience is aware of them, but I thought we could just talk about some of them. There's one that is called the Blackout Challenge, where kids basically, I guess, hold their breath or they try to stop breathing. This has been linked to about 80 deaths, according to the CDC.
That is correct, and I'm aware of one, actually. It's where kids, in a variety of ways, are trying to hold their breath so that they can get to the point of passing out or just about to faint, so they can get a high like they might get as if they were on drugs. And what happens, unfortunately, is that sometimes the young teens they underestimate the fact that if they've tied something around their neck and attached it to a doorknob or something along those lines, they think, oh, I won't hang myself and I will come to just before I pass out. Unfortunately, if they pass out and they have a ligature around their neck, they'll strangle themselves and die, same as if they hung themselves. Deaths are occurring that way. It's very, very scary, and children and teens don't realize sometimes the risk they're taking, because these games are presented by their peers on TikTok and on Twitter and in other places. They're presented as being fun, take a risk, come on, you can do it. And, you know, I remember being a kid, I'm sure you do too, and we would all kind of challenge each other in different ways, but these are lethal challenges.
There's one called the Tide Pod Challenge, in which...
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, this is one that even Rob Gronkowski, former New England Patriot and also Tampa Bay Buccaneer, actually did a PSA. This is how bad this one is. Before we talk about it, let me play this sound of everybody in New England knows who Rob Gronkowski is, the Patriots tight end who was Tom Brady's go-to receiver. Please play cut 44, Rob.
No, 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 no. No, no, no. No. What the heck is going on, people? Use Tide Pods for washing, not eating.
So my understanding is that, and again, I have no idea, they take these, pods of Tide, which, they're filled with soap, and as I understand it, they put them in frying pans, and then
they do that,
and then they chew in them. What is the fun of that? I mean.
So this is what they do. They bite into them, and then it just kind of, as you can anticipate, the soap just kind of spews out and bubbles up. And then they're videoing themselves, while they're doing this, and then posting it as something that is funny, and they're kind of hip for doing this. These things are toxic, and there have been a number of deaths from this.
Is this something that, because of social media, I mean, obviously, I was a child a long time before you were a child. Okay. I mean, I grew up in the era of black and white television, and when we finally got a color TV, it was unbelievable. So a much more innocent time in terms of this stuff. How much is Twitter and Instagram and all of these and TikTok contributing to this? I assume contributing to it mightily.
It's contributing to it a great deal. And I think before the pandemic occurred, we already had a lot of these things happening. But with the pandemic, with our teens and our children being more isolated socially by necessity, they turned even more to social media. And I think what I would encourage parents to think about is, if we can think back of when we were in school, especially middle school and high school, you really wanted to be accepted by your peers. That became one of the most important things. And you wanted to be seen as a hip kid. You wanted to be seen as someone who was part of the in crowd. And that's kind of what has happened now with social media. If you take these challenges, you're kind of cool. You're like everybody else. You're part of the group. And the kids who shy away from that are seen as not being a part of everything. And so it's become... They tag themselves on social media. I mean, they follow themselves. They follow each other. It's become a huge popularity thing amongst our teens.
Well, when we get back, I want to talk about a couple more of these challenges. The milk crate challenge, which sounds really stupid, and the NyQuil chicken challenge, which just to me is the worst of all. I mean, This is to me very, very troubling. My guest on the line from Texas Christian University is the Dr. Deborah Atkisson. No N in there, Atkisson. And we're talking about social media challenges. Again, if you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, this is what potentially your children and your grandchildren are doing. And you need to know about it. You need to know about it. We can talk about, there's all sorts of things to be concerned about. Certainly the fentanyl that is coming over the border and is just, it sounds every day, it sounds like it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But this is stuff that kids are doing that they think it's not going to hurt me, and in some cases it can kill them. If you'd like to join the conversation, ask a question of Dr. Atkisson, who is a child and adolescent psychiatrist. One other soundbite from one other parent. This is a different parent of a 9-year-old girl who actually died from the Blackout Challenge. This is heartbreaking. Cut number 50, please, Rob.
Just the sadness I see in my son's eyes to sing happy birthday to his sister at her grave. It's very hard for all of us, but this is the life now, like, we have to adjust to. We sat at a table of 4 chairs. We sit now at 3. We just never thought there was a darker side to, what TikTok allows on its platform.
We don't want no other children out there to be the statistics of this situation again.
I live every day of my life in her honor, because every day of my life as a mother, I'm surviving the day, because this is not easy to...
Dr. Atkisson, you listen to these parent stories, and again, obviously, we're not talking about tens of thousands of kids dying, but we're talking about dozens and in some cases hundreds of kids dying unnecessarily. What should parents be looking for in their children to make sure that, certainly I assume tell them about the dangers of this stuff as a preliminary suggestion, but what can they do beyond that, if anything?
So the first thing I'm going to say is that it's really normal in today's world for us as parents to feel that we're being a little too intrusive on our teens. Teens push back against us. They want to spend more time with their friends, and although that is normal development, it's important that we continue to be an active part of having open discussions with them. I would encourage every parent to have times during the week where they're just chatting with their child, whether it's at the dinner table, that's a good place to do it, or other places, and bring up these things that they're hearing about. Say, hey, have you ever heard about this? What have you heard about that? Is there anything you hear about that seems sort of silly or fun or odd that people are doing on TikTok or other social media platforms? I mean, just engage them in a discussion about it. Try to help them understand that risk-taking, they have to be very careful about that it can have lethal consequences. And people talk about, well, should you actually see what your child or your teen is doing on social media? I think what you do with that is you can ask your children, is it okay if I friend you as long as I don't, I follow you, as long as I don't make any comments about anything you're doing? But then you have a way of observing what they're doing and seeing what they're exposed to. And that way you can bring up things that you see. But I think you have to have an open discussion.
Yeah, I assume that having an open discussion about these dangerous and sometimes what you and I would consider to be truly juvenile activities, senseless juvenile activities, that having a conversation about that is probably a heck of a lot easier and maybe even more important than having a conversation about the birds and the bees.
I think it probably is.
Yeah,
because kids will talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the birds and the bees thing is not easy, but I think it's okay to say to your kid, hey, I just read a story in the newspaper about this kid was doing whatever they were doing, and they're dead. As a friend of mine once wrote a book, Life is Not a Dress Rehearsal, and it's very true. You make one big bad mistake and you're in trouble. Tell us about this milk crate challenge where they take a whole bunch of milk crates and I guess they stack them up in a pyramid, and then kids try to climb to the top of the pyramid, and of course no one's going to get to the top of the pyramid. You're going to end up falling off and maybe break, if you're lucky, break a leg or break an arm. And if you're not lucky, maybe break your skull.
Exactly. And so this is very unsafe because stacking up a bunch of cartons of any type, especially by someone who's not an expert, a juggler or bouncer or whatever, gymnast, is extremely dangerous. And it's dangerous for those folks, too. And so what happens is they do this on TikTok, and they climb. It's kind of a challenge to see how high you can climb, how far you can go, and then they'll fall. The thing about it that people don't realize is if you climb up 3 stacks of cartons that are unbalanced and you fall, depending on how you fall, you could even break your cervical spine. You could break your neck. You could cripple yourself for life. I actually know a woman, not doing this challenge, but doing something else, who did just that as a young adult, paraplegic. And you could have something along those lines happen. And something that's not quite as bad, but still means a great deal to a lot of people, you could permanently do something to an ankle or an arm that might impair your ability to do sports or other activities. So when you think about it, it's a pretty high-risk thing to be doing for just a moment or two of trying to fit in or be cool.
Yeah, when you do sort of what you and I would refer to as a risk-benefit analysis, it's pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one I want to ask you about, and then I want to get some phone calls for you, the NyQuil Chicken Challenge. This one sounds bizarre.
This is one of the worst ones I've seen, in my opinion, because the lethality of this is pretty amazing. What they do is they take a chicken breast and then they cook it. They pour a lot of NyQuil in this and they cook it. And so while that's cooking, there's one thing that can happen. You can inhale the vapors from that, and that can be very risky for your lungs. But then once you ingest this, the chicken, you're getting about a fourth to even sometimes as much as a half a bottle of NyQuil. Well, one of the compounds in NyQuil can cause your heart. You can have a heart attack from that because of your heart beating too fast and die abruptly. You can have seizures, liver damage. This can cause all sorts of medical consequences that are extremely dangerous from this much ingestion of NyQuil.
Unbelievable. This is... I assume, and my last question, and we got to go to news, and we'll get a quick news break. We'll get some phone calls. I assume that all of these types of activities have exploded, geometrically because of TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and everything, where people can get this stuff out there and people can view it thousands of times, which is part of the thrill as well, that somehow you have become almost as famous as one of the Kardashians. I got to believe there's an element to that.
Oh, of course there is. That's one of the main reasons that teens do it.
Yeah.
It's to be popular. It's like a popularity contest. I have all these followers. But
it's not just a popularity contest in your high school. You're now a popular person nationwide, worldwide. That's why
exactly.
It explodes geometrically, and it is just so dangerous. My guest is Dr. Deborah Atkisson. She is a psychiatrist who deals with adolescents and children, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being with us. We're going to get to phone calls on the other side. We've got a couple of lines left open. If you'd like to get on, and you have to want to ask any question about your child or your grandchild's, their behavior, what are they hiding from you, what might they be doing. I'm a huge believer in get them involved in sports, keep them tired, get them to bed early. I don't care what age. That's the sort of competition you want your kids in, whether it's playing basketball or hockey or baseball or football or soccer or lacrosse or whatever the sport is that your child enjoys. This competition is purely negative, and it's harmful, and it can cost your child or your grandchild their life. And that's why we're talking about it tonight. My guest is Professor Deborah Atkisson of Texas Christian University. She is a psychiatrist who deals with children and adolescents. Do you also deal with the parents of children and adolescents in your practice, Dr. Atkisson?
Absolutely. I see adult patients as well. So yes, I've spent a lot of time talking to parents.
All right. Well, let's get to some phone calls here. Going to go to Tim in Winthrop. Tim, welcome. First this hour on Nice Eye with Professor and Dr. Deborah Atkisson. Go ahead, Tim.
Hi, Dan. How are you doing?
Doing just great. What's your comment or question for Dr. Atkisson?
Doctor, what would you, like when I was a kid, we, the peer pressure was to smoke cigarettes. And they made a law that you have to be over 21 to buy cigarettes. Why don't you make a law that takes away these phones?
Well, I think I understand why you're asking the question, first of all. It's a little more complicated because there actually are some positive uses that we do use with the phones. I know parents can use that to stay in communication with their kids, depending on what's going on. But when you talk about laws, I will tell you that in Texas, we actually did pass a law in 2017 called David's Law. It was about cyberbullying. And so that if someone was cyberbullied, there was actually a criminal penalty that would occur to teens who participated in that. So I do agree with you that using the law can be very helpful.
We had a cyberbullying case a few years ago up here where a young girl who was an immigrant from Ireland was brutally bullied through cyberspace by her classmates, and she actually took her own life. So that is a very serious subject as well. Tim, good idea. I hope you're still not smoking, I hope, are you?
Yeah, I am. But what I thought of was back in the day we never had phones. And we got by.
Yeah. Well, before they had automobiles, there were no fatal car accidents either, Tim. So sometimes you got to take the good with the bad, I guess. Tim, appreciate your call. Thank you much. Have a good one. 617-254-1030, 888-929-1030. Again, I want to hear from parents, and this is an opportunity for you to talk to someone who's an expert in this area who can help you perhaps identify the characteristics of your child who might be either contemplating or engaging in these highly dangerous social media challenges. Many of us who are not on I'm not on TikTok, although I'm certainly aware of it. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. But there are a lot of kids who spend a lot of time, and they're impacted by these nutty social media challenges. Let me go up to the state of Maine. Brent joins us from Maine. Brent, you're on with Dr. Deborah Atkisson. Go right ahead, Brent.
Well, first thing I would like to say, Dr. Atkisson, is I don't think we should be taking phones away from young people, but maybe we need, they have to be 18 or older to have a TikTok, Facebook, whatever account. I mean, maybe kids have to get back to socializing as you go out in a park and toss a Frisbee and spend some time together instead of on the social media. I personally have an abhorrence for social media. My idea of social networking is let's go down to the coffee shop and have a cup of coffee together.
So you're suggesting, wait a sec, Brent, did you suggest that one thing that might be possible would be to let kids have cell phones, but they can't access social media until a certain age? I think you said 18?
I was thinking 18, yes. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. That's an interesting concept. I never thought of that. I don't know if that technically how that can be done, but let's don't hang up. I want to get Dr. Atkisson's reaction to that. Is that possible, do you think?
Well, to be quite honest, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, if there were some way that it could be enforced, that's the problem. I mean, it's almost like the genie is out of the bottle with some of these TikTok platforms now, and it would have been nice, I think, to have had some age-related safeguards present before we got as far down the road as we have gotten. I do agree with you about this time spent face-to-face socializing. Fortunately, things are getting now to where we all can interact more with each other from emerging from this pandemic. And I think encouraging your kids to do things where they're actually doing things, where they're physically present and engaging in different activities is really valuable. And the one thing, we haven't talked about, I want to throw out here is what I call self-esteem. As I really think about how kids want to get in there and mix it up with their peers on social media and become important people by being followed on social media, et cetera. I think a lot of that has to do with their self-esteem being fragile. I think as parents or other adults in their life, if we invest a little time with them and we really help them begin to have a more healthy view of themselves and value who they are, they probably won't have as much of a drive to do this as much as they do.
Brent, you want to comment here?
Well, yes. There's another thing I wanted to bring out. I think also in part of our culture, there's too much stratification according to age. There's a feeling that children should be with children, teens with teens, young adults with young adults, middle agers with middle agers, and seniors with seniors. I'm 69 years old. I can have fun hanging around with teenagers. I can have fun hanging around with a friend that's 90 years old. I had an interesting experience where I was traveling in Argentina, and a 15-year-old girl befriended me. We exchanged addresses. We've been in contact with each other since 1986. And since that time, I've been over. She moved to England, and I've been over to visit her and her husband. And, but I can't imagine a teenager in North America, U.S. or Canada, trying to socialize with an adult they didn't even know.
Yeah,
I think there's too much emphasis on stratifying according to age.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gender stratification there, Brent, but I think that in some of the stories that we've heard, you have a lot of these, guys out who are trolling the internet trying to find young girls, and yours is not that situation at all, obviously, but. That in this day and age, I don't know that's going to happen much. But it sounds to me like you had a great friendship. How old was that 15-year-old you met in Argentina? Was she Argentinian, or was she an American traveling on the same cruise with you or something?
No, she was Argentine. I affectionately call her the Spoon Lady, because when I got back to the States, she was about ready to turn 16. I thought, what would be a good gift to get her? I got her a souvenir spoon. She started sending me souvenir spoons, so I have a whole collection of souvenir spoons.
Good for you. How old is she now? I'm trying to do the math here. So you told me you told me that you're 59. Is that correct?
So let's see. I'm 69.
69.
She would have been. Well, let's see.
She's 55. 55.
Yeah, 17. She's 17 years my junior, so she's 52.
52.
Now.
Okay, well, that 17 years seems like a lot less now. Brent, thank you much for your call. I never realized you were such a world traveler. Congratulations on that one. Appreciate it.
Okay, have a good evening.
Dr. Atkisson, that I actually have a lot of listeners, believe it or not, in Texas. Now, Texas Christian University. Refresh my recollection. Is that in Abilene? Where is TCU located?
Oh no, it's in Fort Worth, Texas,
and
we will be celebrating. We'll be celebrating our 150 years next year.
Yeah, that's wasn't Fort Worth the place? Billy Bob's was down there, right? I remember being, I think, at a place called Billy Bob's in Fort Worth, Texas, many years ago. But I had one instance maybe a week ago where I had two calls. They were both from San Antonio, back to back, and I assumed they must have been, people who knew one another. They didn't know each other, so don't be surprised if we hear from someone in Texas or some other faraway place. Linda in Hyde Park. Linda, next on Night Cycle. Right ahead.
Hi, Dan. How are you? Hi, Doc. I was thinking, because I saw about 2 weeks ago that NyQuil commercial with the Any Meat, whatever they're doing. This is a disgrace. They should have a term of service, a TOS, with parental consent, a legal department, and a way to contact the parent to be on any site that offers all this sick stuff. Now, I know they've had a legal department, and I wish I remembered the site, because my computer died, and I'm not getting another one because everything is just too invasive right now. Anyway, but somebody had taken a picture of me I photoshopped myself, and they put it in an 18 and under site. I got lucky, and that's how I learned about a legal department with some of these social sites. Plus, some of them want a phone number.
I'm assuming,
I'm
assuming, Linda, that probably what you're suggesting is a great idea, but bureaucratically, I suspect that the Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and Twitter, and whoever else is involved in this, will fight against that, because that will put an affirmative obligation upon them.
Well, TikTok's got to go.
Well, that's a different story. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, that's and Twitter. I'm not crazy about Twitter. I went to sign up for it like about 4 years ago or so, and they want a phone number.
Well, I'm on all of them. I'm not on TikTok, but when I retire from radio and I retire from media, you won't find me on any of them. Trust me.
Well, what I'm trying to get at, there's got to be a legal way that they're on with parental consent.
Yeah. Well, there may be, but I think there's going to be some. Someone's going to have to. It's going to have to be done at a federal level, and you'll have to find some U.S. senator who wants to.
FCC.
Well, yeah. I mean, the FCC could theoretically try to do it administratively, Linda. But again, I think that's a little bit beyond my expertise, as well as Dr. Atkisson's expertise. Great idea.
It's just a thought, though.
It's a good thought. It's a good thought, and I appreciate you joining us as always. Wish you call more often, and I got to get to a couple more callers before we wrap it up.
All right. Have a good night. Good night, Doctor.
Linda. Thank you very much. Let me go to Sean in Reading. Sean, you're on with Dr. Deborah Atkisson. Go right ahead, Sean.
Hey, Dan. Appreciate the show. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I only got a quick second, so I'll be really quick.
We can hear you fine. Go right ahead.
But, I've been saying for a long time, I'm in my late 30s. I've got 2 kids that are about to be, going into later years in elementary school. And I've been saying for a long time, why don't we have smartphones? Why can't we have dumb phones for kids that all they do is call home, call 911, call grandma, maybe throw in some text messaging, and the parents have to unlock the app features for all these other social media sites. There's nothing good that comes out of social media for somebody under the age of 18.
Well, that's a great point.
Social media
Let me get Dr. Atkisson. That's a great suggestion because some company out there could market dumb phones so that kids could have a phone which is somewhat limited. Dr. Atkisson, I think that's a really good suggestion Sean made.
It is a great suggestion. I will tell you that a number of years ago, there were small flip phones that for children that had where they could just have a few numbers in them that could be called, and they were used for young children. I don't really know that those are used much today. I haven't looked into those in a bit, but with all the phone technology that has occurred, I suspect that may have gone to the wayside, although it may still be present. But I think it's a great idea, and I really like the idea of there being different levels of responsibility where the parents unlock it. That's actually a fabulous idea.
I would hope that some entrepreneur out there might want to get together with one of the venture capital companies, and this looks to me like something could be on Shark Tank or something like that. My daughter's involved in venture capital. I'm going to mention it to her, Sean, as an idea, to be honest with you.
Cool.
Because I think that there would be a lot of parents who would say to their kids, okay, look, you're going to have a phone. It's going to look like all the other phones, but it's going to be somewhat limited. You can always get in touch with us. You can get in touch with your grandparents. You can get in touch with whoever you want to program the phone for, particularly when they're, under the age of 15 or 16. Great idea, Sean. We got some smart callers here on Nightside. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Have a good night.
Great. Good night. Tucker is in Marblehead. Tucker, you are next on Nightside. How are you, sir?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing great. I don't know if I've ever talked to a Tucker from Marblehead before. Have you called before?
No. This is actually my first time calling.
Well, we're going to give you a round of applause. Tucker is a first-time caller from our virtual studio audience. Say hi to Dr. Deborah Atkisson. Go right ahead.
Hi, Deborah.
Hello there. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. I hear this conversation all the time in the media, and I hear this conversation every single time I go on the internet. I primarily use YouTube, but I am a user of Facebook and Twitter pretty often. And I don't use TikTok by any means, but I see stuff come from that website or social media site, whatever the one it is. And, all these trends, all these, events that happen, I honestly think that people are blowing them way out of proportion when it comes to all these trends. And I know you might think that's a bad thing, but I really don't see it as that big of an issue.
Did you listen to this, Tucker? Did you listen to the whole hour to some of the parents who have lost children to these social media challenges? Yeah,
and that's upsetting to most people, but I mean, those are probably very rare cases of incidents. And my heart goes out to all those parents that have lost their child, lost their sons, their daughters. And some of the stuff that comes from that site, it is very, very bad, and it's hurtful to kids' mental health.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. I'm an absolutist in the First Amendment, but this stuff does not deserve a place on the broadband. Does not deserve broadband space, in my opinion.
I know, but here's the thing. I know I'm trying to cut this short, but
I got less than a minute left, so go ahead. Give me your wrap it up, and then I got to say goodnight to the doctor. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think we should ban, all these sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I do think that someone else mentioned it. I forget the person who just called in here prior, but it's like we do need some sort of regulation.
Yeah, we don't have to ban them, but I think they need. I think that they're almost like public utilities. That I think they could deserve some regulation. Tucker, I have to say goodnight to my guest. Thank you. Please call again. Call earlier. I think you'd be an interesting caller to talk to at greater length. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Deborah, you have a good night. Thank you for being here.
You too. Absolutely.
Dr. Atkisson, thank you very much. Real quick question. As a parent, my children are now in their 30s, but there will come a time in every parent-child relationship where that child, whether it's 14, 12, 15, 16, they want to break away, and there's that big moment where you get a sense that they're trying to spread their wings and you really don't want to lose them. What advice do you give parents when that child shows that first real moment of rebellion?
I think the best advice I can give to a parent when that happens is be able to find a space where you can just sit and talk to your child about the fact that they're wanting to be able to take on more things. You've noticed that they're interested in that they've grown and developed, and it's your job as their parent to help them get ready to move towards complete independence.
Perfect.
And that you will help them find each step of the way when the time is right. And if they're ready for more independence, work out a responsible way for them to have it.
All right,
and let them go in that direction.
Doctor, thank you so much for a great hour of radio. I appreciate it very much, Dr. Deborah Atkisson. I'd love to have you back at some point. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.